Alright, welcome to the lock-on FPS controller. In this video I'll go over some of the features that this controller has, just so you can see it in action. First off, all of the simple stuff, you can double jump, which is actually a multi-jump. So if we look at our player on our Prime controller, we have a number of jumps options, so we can turn it up if we want to jump. If we want to be able to jump 5 times, or we can turn it down if we only want a single jump for the character, which works good for like the beginning of a game before one acquires any power-ups or whatnot. Next we have a sprint, which just speeds up the player. Then we have a dash, so hitting control, it dashes in whatever direction that you are currently moving. So if you're moving to the right, you dash right, or to the left, you even dash backwards. It just takes whatever your current velocity is and moves you in that direction. Next we have a crouch, and the crouch, it detects what's above your head, so if you are crouching underneath something, you can't sprint or dash out of it. However, after you leave cover, you can sprint or dash to leave crouching. And there is another piece of movement to go over, which is the moving platforms. This controller does function with these moving platforms. It's held in the moving platform script. It basically is just parenting the player. Alright, now the next thing we'll look at is the actual lock-on features. So we'll start by mousing over something, and you can see the reticule change color and also display an indicator indicating that this is a targetable object, as opposed to mousing over a wall, which is not. Now whenever you right click or hold left trigger, because this does have controller functionality too, you get a target indicator that you have locked onto the target. And notice this does take away the player's ability to move their camera themselves, and it just focuses the camera onto the target. And they can move in any direction, they can dash in any direction for like incorporating dodging into combat. And also, besides locking onto enemies, this can lock onto any object that is designated as targetable. So these green blocks are essentially health packs. They are not destructible. They are simply an object that you can lock onto, as opposed to this box, which is destructible as an enemy. And we can see that in the scene, health packs, you just tag things as target, where this enemy also has the target tag. Anything that's tagged as target will be targetable. Now, another thing to note about this is that it has a max range built in as well. So if we're targeting something and we get too far away, it breaks the target off of it. And then we can't target it again until we get back into range. And another feature is that these bullets that we're firing, whenever you're not locked on, they just simply fire wherever the gun is pointing. However, on a moving target, it can be hard to actually hit. So with the lock-on feature, it tells every bullet, it gives every bullet a target, whatever target you're locked onto, and each bullet is homing to that target that you're locked onto, just by facing it every frame. And this helps to keep accuracy with moving targets. And that brings us to another point, is that you can kind of tell we have a lot of bullets happening and we are achieving that by doing object pooling. So you can see on the left here all of the bullets that exist. Some are active, some are not, and that is just because we're recycling the game objects so as to not instantiate and destroy and hurt performance. And the last thing we'll talk about is some of the modularity in these scripts. So you'll see that our player has a health script, and in that same vein, so if we go into the scene and check an enemy, they are using this same health script. So this can be applied to any object that you want to use hit points and be destroyed. And another part of that is that whenever it takes damage, its material lights up red and does like a nice red indication flash, and then it will drop an item. So if we take damage, we can pick up this health pack. And you can see there are visuals that flash on the screen too. But for instance, this is an enemy that doesn't have a loot option assigned to it. Whenever it dies, nothing happens. But whenever this one dies, it drops a health pack. And that can be achieved by simply going back to our enemy. And here we have the enemy script. So this enemy is targeting the player because we have filled in the player field, and this is the loot that it drops, a health cube. We can contrast this enemy, who is actually looking at the player and homing in on it. We can contrast it with this enemy, who has no target and no health script and no loot. So what this means is that since there's no health script, it is not destructible. Since it is not targeting the player, it is simply firing in a fixed direction every time, and since it drops no loot, well, it can't be destroyed anyway, so it doesn't matter. Now, in much the same way that we have the health script being modular, we also have a gun script that is modular under the player camera. So we have a gun object with a gun script, which specifies how fast we can shoot, bullets per second, designates the cooldown time per bullet, the bullet prefab, the max number of active bullets, so that fits into the object pooling that we're doing, saying how many bullets are allowed to exist at any one time. So this gun script, even if we don't have a lock-on target for the player, an enemy can use this same script. So if we go back to an enemy, we have the enemy gun object. And see, it's not using a lock-on script because it's not a player and does not have a camera. But we can still adjust this gun. You'll notice on the player's end, we had bullets per second be 10. This one is only 1, it fires much slower. If we up it to 10, it's firing quickly, just like the player. And of course it can be any amount that suits your fancy. But this just demonstrates that this gun script, much like the health script, can be applied to anything that you want to fire bullets. And that should cover all of the big features in the lock-on FPS controller. And of course you can find this on the Unity Marketplace. So hopefully this can help you out in your projects.